Wake up, buyer payer people. It's a beautiful day. Go grab yourself another cup of joe and say hello to Jim and Michelle Rhodes on the Buy Here Pay Here morning show. Take it away, you two.
Good morning, everybody.
Hello.
Happy Wednesday.
Greetings from Tampa, Florida.
We're at Tampa, on our way in a couple of hours out to Orlando for the FIADA conference.
Excited to see all the
smart
people there.
Funny thing.
Oh, here it goes.
Right. Yesterday, we like a lot of you know, we've been staying with my daughter and we, just wrapped up our business appointments, wrapped everything up, got the car loaded, headed to the airport, got out of the car, put all the, and I'd asked before we packed, I was like, let's pack lighter because we're picking up our car here in Florida and we're driving it back. And so, that way we have like more room in the back of the car to add stuff. So we get to the airport and, we pull everything out and we're stacking it and we're like ready to go. And I'm looking around, I'm like, oh my gosh, it seems like we have so much less stuff than we normally do. We did a great job. I was like about ready to high five myself with how great we did with downsizing. And then I realized that my suitcase was still sitting in my daughter's living room. So the entire flight, it's like, okay, so
my fault.
No, it's no, it's just as much mine because I should have noticed as I was walking past it.
I have all my stuff
that it wasn't there. So, so we're going to be, making a quick, luckily we're going to the storage unit and I left a lot of clothes and stuff there. So,
refill.
Oh, and we have George too.
Yes.
So we're here and we're excited and we'll see everybody at FIADA and we will be broadcasting our address live tomorrow. So, please tune in.
Yeah, please. 2 Eastern, I think was what we decided was the time.
Eastern.
And so, tune in for that. We'll be broadcasting across all the normal channels. So tune in for that. We've got 3 special guests with us today. We got any other announcements before I bring in the guests?
First off, the webinar from last month will be available by the end of the day. If you want to go ahead and it'll be on the Buy Here Pay Here.
How to convert more leads
into appointments. Our Anna Maria Beck, who is our fractional CMO, she put together some really great little clips of some of the nuggets and so we'll be using those on social so that getting some people that were not aware or just didn't have the opportunity to be there for the webinar to see kind of some of the stuff and head out there and be able to get that too. And then we have another one that's coming up on the 31st. Marketing should be going out this week on that one too. That one is going to be
dialing in your messaging.
And we talk an awful lot about branding, and this is about branding, but it's not about a logo. It's not about a color palette. It's not about that kind of stuff. It's about who your community sees you. I mean, how they see you and do they know you? That kind of thing.
Troy Shear from NIEDA will be part of that one.
Yes. And so is Dave from our COO. So good morning, George. I'm looking forward to an smoked old fashioned with you.
That's George Spat over in Orlando. He's waiting for us in Orlando. He's standing at the door.
So
watching.
Exactly. Anyone that is out there in listener land, if we are in town, we love getting groups of people together for a beautiful smoked old fashioned. It's just, it's really a nice tradition. It's a nice kind of ritualistic thing. So I really enjoy it.
Let's bring in our guest
today.
So let's introduce them one at a time. Let's bring in our friend Tyler Simmons from West Texas. Many of you who tune into the show routinely, Tyler. He's a sales manager for a long-established group, and he happens to be the compliance designate. I forget what they call that title, Tyler, but
compliance. I lost you.
Say again.
Compliance officer.
Officer.
Excellent.
Okay. So he's on top of all things compliance with his dealership. And so we know he's active enough on Facebook. We know he keeps up with this stuff. And so he's always generous with his time and able to kind of give dealers tips on how to stay out of the crosshair. So that's our big subject for today. And then our next guest is John DeFilippo out of Pennsylvania. Glad to have you here, John. We've got John is we didn't talk about your past role with Marietta. You've been part of the executive team there, am I right?
I am. I'm former president and chairman of the board. I'm now presently treasurer and on the executive committee and chief cook, bottle washer, etc.
Yeah, all the stuff. I get it. And so he's a current dealer, a lot of wholesale work, some retail work, and like I said, long-time buy here, pay here dealer. And then we've got George Montemayor out of Arizona. Glad to have George join us as well. So thanks for tuning in with us, George. So George is a consultant, advisor, agent with a couple of different products, but he's got a long career with credit acceptance. So we knew that he would have a little added insight on some of these things. And certainly today is not about, any sort of indictment of credit acceptance. We all can kind of read for ourselves what the suit is with, that's the state of New York, I think, is coupled with the CFPB. And none of us here are trying to be attorneys today. We're not out here trying to, interpret the law as much as we're trying to interpret what can we see from the CFPB lawsuit that might be, give some indication to those of us out there doing Main Street buy here, pay here as to, what's the priority? What does the agency view as egregious? And so how can we stay out of trouble? Tyler, I'd like your thoughts first. I know you perused a lot of the language there, and I wonder what you're seeing as a dealer yourself. What are you taking away from that you might share with other dealers?
My biggest takeaway was being consistent in what you do, your policies, your procedures, your pricing, your underwriting, viewing every customer the same way. But that doesn't mean that you have to sell every car the same way either. You can have different down payments. You can accept different PTIs. You can have a cap on your PTI, but that doesn't mean that that every customer has to reach that cap. And that's kind of, if a dealer had a max PTI of 25%, well, it would probably be in the best interest of you as the dealer to not strive to hit 25% every single time.
Good point.
And that's, the whole get the most out of the customer at the time of sale and get the most out of them every month. You're just kind of stirring the pot. And if it came down to being in front of a jury of other consumers, not peers, but other consumers, you would not fare very well whenever it's obvious through your portfolio and loans that you produce that you try to get as much as you can every single time. And it's, I have a legislative committee meeting with our state association at 12 today, and luckily the conversations that we're having, leading up to our lobby day next month is not to this extreme. We're tackling much smaller issues, but if you're a dealer in any state and you're not paying attention to this stuff, at least being aware of it, not saying you got to read through the entire lawsuit, but just being aware of what's out there, it'll sneak up on you.
Yeah.
My recommendation is anybody in buy here, pay here specifically that wants to know how they would attack a buy here, pay here, Google Herbie's Auto Sales out of Colorado.
Yeah, that's a really prominent case out there. I think one of the other things, Tyler, before I bring the others in, the other thing that I saw in the language is that they made a point about the success of the customer, the likelihood of success of the customer, meaning they felt like they were setting up the customer to fail, in a percentage of the cases, which that's something we're always mindful of. And
we try to be.
We always are certainly trying to help dealers think about how to help the customer be successful and buy another car at the end of the note, or trade them out of the thing, but help the customer be successful. So I picked up some language in there, which some of this stuff is pretty gray area, right? Obviously, when it goes to the courthouse, it's going to get black and white, but I think it does give an indication of what they view as egregious. So, John, I wonder about your perspective on the same thing. What was your general perspective as you read through that? What are you seeing in that you think matters to the typical buy here, pay here dealer?
Well, I think, to Tyler's point, don't push every consumer to their highest payment, to the greatest amount down, to pushing them to a point where they're going to fail. I also feel that the regulator is feeling that CAC in some way is trying to force every consumer to fail on a loan, which there is no financial benefit to forcing a consumer to fail on a financial loan. And, as was brought up many times in our 20 group meeting, the largest expense on your income statement is charge off. You don't want charge off. You're not making money on charge off. It costs money. It costs money to sell every single car. It costs money to recondition every car again. It costs money to bring every single car back, and it costs money to go out and find another customer. So the last thing we want to do is set a customer up to fail. One of the big things that I saw that I thought was two of their biggest issues was one was the add-on products. And I thought that part of that, the add-on products, one of them is GAP and the other one was warranties that CAC lets you sell. And, I believe an extended service contract's a good thing for a consumer. They do max the amount that you're allowed to charge for an extended service contract. And they do max the amount you're allowed to sell. And I don't mean max as far as max profit. They max the amount you can charge for it. So there's, from that standpoint, there's a dealer can't mark that product up additionally and get additional advance from them. But both those products I feel are good products for a consumer that is credit challenged, that has the inability, if they wreck their car or they have a mechanical failure, to be able to pull a credit card out of their wallet and go pay off the difference in GAP, or to be able to pay for a repair. So, I thought, them saying that they're forcing those products it was kind of overstepping a little bit in the fact that they're not understanding why the products are sold and that they actually add value to the consumer. And
it'll be interesting to watch that. It'll be interesting to watch that part of it as the suit goes forward. Will they be able to prove that part at all? Because, the customer's got to choose that. They got to sign for it. And I would agree with you about the value. Heck, Michelle and I have a service contract. We opted in on a service contract on the vehicle we purchased. So, it's not that the product's a bad product.
It's not a perfect thing.
Yeah. But it's a choice. So, George, you're, again, somebody with a long career with credit acceptance. And so, again, we're aware that credit acceptance is a major player, longtime public company in the space. Most of us, who would be listening into this thing would know that, that they're somebody who buys deep. They buy deep subprime paper, and they, often do it as a, I guess we could call them an indirect party or point of sale, source. And so they're basically, for those who listen and wouldn't know, credit acceptance really only sources paper from dealers, to my knowledge. And so that means they're going to acquire that paper at a discount and give the dealer an advance, which is really determined before the transaction occurs, right? The credit acceptance system has already basically approved the deal at a point of sale. And so the dealer knows
in regards to the relationship with the dealer.
So the dealer, and so basically the dealer already knows that credit acceptance is going to acquire the paper before the customer is delivered, is really what I'm suggesting.
Every customer is approved. The system will spit out the transaction, the details of the transaction. Number one being the advance, which then obviously determines the profitability on the deal up front. So the dealer knows up front prior to delivery, prior to really talking to the nitty gritty of the transaction with the consumer.
Yeah.
So. And
just to be clear, I think, just for a handful of people who might not have experience with this part of it, when we talk about an advance or a discount, as we pick an example, let's say that, we've got a $11,000 car, just kind of throw add-ons out of it for just a minute. If we had $11,000 car, customer gives $1,000 down, we got a $10,000 note, then credit acceptance is going to buy that contract at a discount. Let's use 20%. They're going to advance the dealer $8,000. But credit acceptance is acquiring a $10,000 note. They're going the note between the consumer and credit acceptance basically is for $10,000. So that's the part I think sounded a little confusing in some of the language. Is almost like the regulators didn't quite understand the discount part. The note to the consumer is still the same note. Is that the way you would say?
And there's technically 3 programs with credit acceptance: the portfolio, the collection only, and the purchase program. So the portfolio program, in as much as they might advance $8,000 on that deal, but the dealer would share in 80% of all the net collections. So the dealer would participate in some of the interest that's collected down the road on the portfolio program.
Yeah.
And that's where they do it in pools.
And I realized as I introduced you, I said long-time career. You're no longer with credit acceptance.
Correct. Yeah, I've been since April 1st. Then there's the other program, which is called the purchase program, predominantly for franchise dealers, where that's like every other lender, where they're actually just buying the contract at a discount from the dealer. And there are deals where there's 0 discount fee.
Right.
It could be 55% discount fee. It depends on the risk of the deal structure, and the dealer.
Yeah. So did you read any of the information on the lawsuit?
Yes.
Or anything that is there anything you're interpreting in there that you feel like, if you're Main Street Buy Here Pay Here dealer in Middletown, Indiana, is there something that you hear in there that you feel like is an indication of how dealers might want to, manage their business?
Yes. I mean, Tyler said one of the words, which is consistency, right? So, and that's one thing, excuse me, they do promote credit acceptance to their dealers is consistency. It doesn't mean every dealer is going to do it. And that's probably where you run into some problems. As we know in the car business, and I was just talking to dealers about this in Pennsylvania when I was out there for a week, is there's that 20%, maybe 15% that are requiring all these safeguards and rules and the CFPB and things like that. It's the 85% of the dealers that actually do it right and compliantly. There's a lot in this lawsuit that I could sit there and discuss in detail. However, when it comes to the Buy Here Pay Here dealers, it's consistency number one, just laying it out the same way for every customer, so you're not getting into disparate pricing on the interest and things like that, and you cram this VSC down this guy's throat because he was a minority or something like that. No, we're going to do it the same way every time to every customer, regardless of what they're buying and how they're buying. And just following the laws and the compliance regulations. That's it. I mean, it's that simple. And when it comes to credit acceptance, I mean, they have more attorneys than they do sales reps. So they're overly, I mean, when I was there, we could have done a hell of a lot more business if they weren't so tight on the compliance of regulations and things like that. Doesn't mean they're perfect, and nobody's perfect. I mean, you guys, Tyler and John, we all make mistakes, right? When we're doing deals, or we forget a signature on the as-is FTC buyer's guide, or we don't have them sign off the fact that they did not want to buy a VSC and things like that, which can come back. Maybe you missed something in the recon of the vehicle with repairs. There was an oversight. So, we've all make mistakes. But overall in that lawsuit, I mean, I think it just goes to show you that just, do things like you guys say, the 10-year plan, right? Just do things the right way. You want to be a good business partner of the community. Just do it the right way. If you have speed bumps and hiccups and make mistakes, you just remedy it, and you won't get, like I was talking to a dealer in Pennsylvania about, is you don't get the BBB letters and the AG letters from our friends at the Attorney General's office in Pennsylvania.
Right. So, yeah, I think I would just remind our audience, no one here is an attorney. We're not coming at this from a legal perspective.
Every once in a while, we'll role play one.
Yeah,
but that's about it.
Pretend to play.
You guys do a good job at it too. Yes.
We have fun, right? But I think the thing you mentioned, a couple of things in that I think are really important. And Tyler, I'll come back to you. I just think you hear us in the morning show. We talk about, obviously we're doing this session this morning on White Hat Wednesday. We like to really promote the white hat thing. And I think when George talks about, mistakes, dealer make mistakes. I don't think Tyler and John make mistakes, George, but I think, plenty of dealers do. But I think the idea is, does it look like a mistake or does it look like a pattern? For me, if I'm coming in, it's like, if you made a mistake, you made 3 mistakes on Friday and 4 more on Saturday, that starts to look like a pattern, right? And so it's, I think that's where we'd be coming from is, and also I would just tell you, as dealers out there, just go go hit ftc.gov or hit the CFPB and see how easy it is for your consumers to file a complaint. And for me, that's where it starts. It's like a wise attorney. I sat in a room, and John DeFilippo may have been in the same banquet hall that I remember hearing an attorney tell us years ago, like, you don't want your customers in an attorney's office. You just don't want to see that happen. And so we
Stay out of court.
we can't, stay out of the courthouse. And the best way to do that is obviously all these things we're talking about. So Tyler, your thoughts, anything more to add on that particular stream of thought?
Yeah. So one thing with CAC, with reading through the suit, and it's just their model, but they, the amount financed, in the example provided within the suit, the amount financed, I want to say it was close to $8,000. It was $7,800, $7,900, something like that. And even though the loan resulted in repossession, being sold at auction, and then debt collection efforts by CAC, even though that was the case, they still collected close to $200 more than the amount financed.
Right.
So the consumer didn't even go the full length of the loan, and yet they still collected, more than the amount that was financed. And it's, crazy to think that way, and I think that that's a possibility. And but you got to think about all the charges and things like that. And this is something else that was a Facebook post by Jack the other day. Was he posted a screenshot of that customer and the late fees, and there were people that were in the comments in the thread saying, this state we can only charge $5, or this state it's $15 cap, or well, in the state of Texas, it's 15% of the amount that is contractually due. Or so that's another thing that this should open the eyes on, is fees and how you charge them and when you charge them and what you charge them for, and that it's you can't just shoot from the hip and say, man, this customer was really difficult. It took me 2 hours to get this car instead of the 15 minutes that it should have taken me, so I'm going to charge more. And it just your consistency has to go across from sales to collecting, charge-offs, the whole one.
Yeah, all the way through. Obviously, for those dealers that are self-servicing their own portfolios, then that's going to be a thing. John, other thoughts on that subject?
So I could just say, when we were buy here, pay here, we never sued for deficiency. We didn't charge fees. And one of the things was, it goes back to the attorneys that number one, I never wanted to be in front of the district justice that was right up the street, that I was friendly with people that lived in our neighborhood, the people that he was familiar with, et cetera. It's just part of doing business. So we, got our car back, and that was life. I think from most of the cases I've ever seen that have really gotten ugly, it's usually after guys that are very hard on suing for deficiency. And credit acceptance is one of those that does pursue deficiency pretty vigorously. And being a credit acceptance dealer and getting, and them giving you 20%, or them only taking 20% and you getting 80% of everything after the advance, you look at that and say, okay, that they're doing what they're supposed to do to pursue my part of the portfolio. But if it was up to me, honestly, I would just say, leave them alone. I mean, you've done enough. Just move on. And
I'll try to remember to find the link and share it. But I wrote an article some months ago for TIADA's publication in Texas, and that subject was kind of one farm boy's long lunch with the CFPB. Kind of I called it an imaginary tale. Tyler's nodding like he might have seen that. But
good article.
So the idea was, if I were just daydreaming and I could imagine having a chance to sit with the folks at the CFPB, I think I'd be speaking up on behalf of buy here, pay here dealers and saying, this consumer who's a hardworking person who's fallen into a difficult credit spot, they need some transportation. It's part of what makes the world go around. And it's like, if you're not going to support a dealer who is willing to provide that financing to an unbankable consumer, then are you going to do it? Are you going to provide the financing to this high-risk consumer, Mr. CFPB dealer or CFPB agent? Because I think we're sometimes going after this dealer who is providing a solution where there is none. And so I think we just, for me, I would like to see a little more a supportive approach to the whole thing. While, look, if dealers are being egregious and mistreating customers, by all means, let's penalize those folks. But for the typical dealer who's out there, like I say, making an occasional mistake, but making a pattern of showing, and this is part of why I think, Tyler, that you hear us talk a lot about community engagement and, community outreach and all these kind of things, and demonstrating a desire to see the customer be successful. Because if I'm going to try to create a pattern, it's going to be a pattern of striving to help the customer be successful. I think when I can do that, that's a pattern that's going to stand up year after year.
And
Sure,
I've been
please.
just sitting here. It's like, I'm kind of the outsider, new to this whole thing. And I have just a couple of questions, 'cause I probably would be closer to someone that would be sitting in court, like one of the jurors type thing. I'm not a buy here, pay here. We teach, and I've been in it, for just a couple of years, but I'm married in.
Yeah.
Why do people use credit acceptance? And what I'm hearing is primarily, it's a cash management,
For a dealer.
So it's like, there's too much risk on the road. We want to be able to get some money back. All of that is one of the reasons why people use credit acceptance, because credit acceptance will accept a loan that you personally would not, because the risk is too high.
A lot of times, right? So, yeah, everybody's approved the credit acceptance. They don't send out any turn down letters. Everybody's approved. It's another avenue for the dealers to help. Keep in mind that credit acceptance was founded by Don Foss, who just recently passed away. And the motto was always, "We change lives." And that's how it was originated, because he didn't want to say no to anybody back in the early 70s. Now it's morphed into this, $8-9 billion entity. However, at the core, it's still all about we change lives. They report to all three credit bureaus and always have. They only wanted their business once, in hopes that the customers would make their payments on times and get their credit back on track. And the dealer makes a little bit of money, credit acceptance makes a little bit of money, but you do it in a volume basis. And then the customer hopefully graduates to the next step financing, area. But I think people have to keep that in mind, that at the core, obviously it's a for-profit enterprise. However, they don't harass customers. I mean, I've seen them where they let customers drive cars for months when the payments were due, and the dealers were yelling at me because they want their 80%. It's like, well, talk to the customer and work with them, see if they can just, if they can send in $100 a month, it's better than zero. When I was there, they always followed the regulations and compliance. I mean, again, do they have speed bumps and missteps? Absolutely. But I think overall, I've never seen them or heard anything about them harassing customers and forcing them to make payments where they couldn't. A lot of times we promoted promises to pay. Now the problem is, if you have 9 promises to pay, and you guys in the buy here pay here arena would never go 9 never promises to pay, never. Where they have, customer fell into bad times. They lost their job, husband died. Let's see how we can work this out. But there's a point at which you got to just say, hey, this is a business. I mean, we still need to take that car back and, follow the process with the redemption. You're either going to redeem it or you're not, or it's going to go to the block.
Sure. Yeah.
That makes sense?
It does. And I think, Tyler, we want to wrap it up here pretty soon. Obviously, we could all stay here and talk about this kind of stuff all day. I think
I do have more questions, but I'm just not going to ask, because we'll be here for another quite a while.
I think that, when I look at this thing, I just think it always kind of comes back to these fees and kind of the pattern and kind of, are we piling on? Just if in the simplest form, if I were an attorney, Tyler, and you came to me and you were being sued and maybe it was even a class action, right? And so I'm going to look inside your stuff and I'm going to say, what do I expect to have to defend? If I'm your defense attorney, what do I expect to have to defend? And can I make a case, that Tyler is, he needs these fees to make his business model work. If he doesn't have these fees or whatever, his business doesn't function and he can't provide financing to consumers in his community who are in a tough spot. So it's like, can I make that case or not? And so if the charges are such that it's doing is making Tyler rich, then it's a pretty thin argument for me as a defense attorney, and so that's why I think that's the way I see the thing as somebody who's, former dealer and been around this space a long time. I just think sometimes what we see as dealers are, whether it's a max APR, charging the maximum to the customer, maximum payment. It's like, the question is it's just a simple thing. Is it good for the consumer? Or is it just good for the dealer?
And I would from my perspective is I would encourage dealers, just as a consumer, is you're always trying to make sure that this person, you feel like they're going to be able to make the payment and do the thing, and they're going to be successful, because the White Hat Way dealer is we're sitting on the same side of the table. We want to be able to help. We want to be able to help you be as successful as you possibly can be. And so I would just encourage that even when you push something to credit acceptance, if it's something your customer is going to fail, don't do it.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Yeah, it's we're playing a long game. As George kind of talks about, the 10-year approach is really about just playing a long game. Customers successful, they buy again and again, and we have them in our book of business for a long time. So, how about some closing thoughts? We'll go John and then George and Tyler. John, any thoughts? If you're talking directly to a Main Street dealer out there, is there anything in this lawsuit that you see that tells me, here's a couple of things you might want to think about in your business to avoid ending up in the crosshairs?
Well, I think, and it's the CAC thing with you, do what you would do if it was your own portfolio. Don't do it as you're just laying something off to an outside finance company, because it is and do what you would want to have done to you. I mean, I just,
Amen.
I don't see people, too many times I see people trying to hurt a customer, and it's just, I want the customer back. I want to sell you. I know George said they want them to graduate, but I'd love to keep them forever. But and they don't have to be subprime customers forever, but I would love them keeping as customers forever. And I think you just do the right thing by the customer.
That's good. Yeah, George, your thoughts?
I mean, I just echo that. Is just be compliant. I know in Arizona you can charge 38% interest, but it's just be reasonable. 21-22% on a deep subprime customer. Don't jam the VSC and the gap and the products down their throat. Don't sell them a card. It's going to be, breaking down in 3-4 months. I always say, would you put your grandmother in this car and feel comfortable with her driving cross country in this car? If that's your mindset, then sell this car. If you can't say that, then you shouldn't be retailing this car. And just set the people up for success. I mean, 13, 14%, PTI. Just do the right thing. At the end of the day, you want your money back. Why would you set a consumer up for failure? You don't want the car back. You're in the money business, not the car business, really. So that's all I say, is just do the right thing. Like John said, do what you would want done to you. It just makes the problem with it. I'll say this real quick, is that, it's probably that everybody that is going to do it this way is on this call. It's like, we got to figure out how to get those other dealers, the other 20%, 15%, on these calls so they can really hear. And that's where I think, I hate to say it, but like forced education and compliance classes at every state sponsored, and allow the IADs to run them, and unfortunately we're forcing regulation on ourselves in the industry by that 15-18% that does things wrong. So that's all I'll say.
Well, we'll give Tyler the final word. I would say, George, that many of us wouldn't put our grandmother in the car, but it's mostly about her vision. It's not about.
Well, I used to say mother-in-law, and then I would get an answer like, well, I might, so that doesn't work. It has to be grandmother.
Girl, but I'm not going to go there.
Yeah, we won't. No, yeah. So Tyler, some closing thoughts from you?
With the concept of consistency, we all have to, whether you're buy here, pay here, or just an independent doing special finance, it's not the same with every single customer that walks in your door.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why, if you got 2 DWIs, you're going to pay more for insurance than I will.
Yeah.
So it's okay to have higher interest rate for one, lower for another. If you're going to do tiered interest rates, then have it in your underwriting. you don't want to charge more on a sales price for this customer than you would on that customer if it's the same car. So I don't want it to sound like you need to be walking on eggshells and with every deal that you do.
Right.
You just got to be aware. You just got to know what's out there and what the problems are. Subscribe to some newsletters and just, even if it's, whether it's new car stores or retail or franchise or on the federal level or the state level in another state, it at least gives you an idea as to what's going on out there, what mistakes people are making that's getting them in the spotlight.
Right. Very good. And John, we haven't had a chance to talk to you about it, but both George and Tyler have agreed to step in and provide mentorship, to dealers out there through some of our channels. So I would say if anybody's looking for mentorship from these gentlemen with a lot of experience, you can reach out to us and we'll help you get connected until we have a more formal platform in place. We can always help you get connected to some good mentors. And in the meantime, we're going to wrap it up there. We appreciate you gentlemen making time, especially now that we're in a noon time slot. You're actually having to take away time from business hours. So
Thank you.
So we do appreciate you taking a break from your team, and now you can go back and do your thing. But again, thanks for tuning in, and hope the conversation was useful to our listeners out there.
If you guys will stick around for just a second while we close up,
out in the backstage,
and we will be
we'll
right back with you. So good conversation.
Yeah, good
I
stuff.
still had a ton of questions to ask, and I'm going to do my squirrel now.
Oh, no? Okay.
Yeah. So my physics teacher in high school, he was just the funniest guy in the whole world. And he would stop in the middle of a lecture and he would just say something off the wall, like a dumb dad joke. And he's like, happiness is seeing your mother-in-law's face on the back of a milk carton, and then continue on with this thing. And so that dates me, I know, because we used to get like these little milk cartons at lunchtime, and then missing people were on the back of the milk carton. So
that's funny.
So that was my squirrel.
Yeah.
I had, it was just like itching.
Yeah.
I had to share it.
Gotta get that
All right. So we are going to be wrapping up here and then making the drive out to Orlando. We will see all you folks out there during the expo. And we will be broadcasting our address live tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern.
You want to tune in for that? We're going to ask you to think about selling something far more valuable than a used car. So hang in for that.
All right. Have a great day, everybody. We really appreciate you listening in. And then we will see you all on Friday. Have a great day.